what's up you guys, the Curious Owl here, and today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the novel Cloaked in Shadow by Benjamin Alderson. This was my January TBR pick for the month, and I was way impressed with how this story was. I think I was more blown away than I had ever expected to be, and this is just one of those novels where I didn't know what I was going into going in, and I was just swept off my feet. And I'm so happy that I actually ended up reading it because I had heard some good things about it along BookTube with people that were friends with Benjamin Alderson, because if you guys don't know, Ben Alderson actually used to be a booktuber for the longest time, and then he developed his own publishing company called Off Tomes, which I have done many a review for the books that have come out from Off Tomes, and I grabbed this copy myself, not for specifically review purposes in exchange for copies. I bought this myself and I was truly interested in it, and I have to say I was just absolutely blown away by Ben's writing, and I cannot wait to be able to get my hands on Founded Night and then the final installment, Poisoned in Light. Well, my iPad just died, so I can't really give you the synopsis right now without putting up the picture. So to give a brief synopsis of the story, the main character, Zachariah, is an elf, and this is basically a fantasy world where there is different kinds of elves within the world. Some of them have magic, some of them don't, and Zachariah is taken with a bunch of other elves to this castle in Alderson, and basically it finds out that they are being used to try to fight in a war against a group of elves that are going through and pillaging a bunch of villages within this kingdom. And the reason Zachariah is able to come to the castle is because he is thought of to be what is called a shifter, where he is able to use magic to be able to shift into different kinds of animals that may be useful within the war. But the thing is Zachariah is not a shifter in the slightest. And he actually holds some different kind of magic that honestly is more terrifying for him to reveal, because it could mean that he could be at risk for any kind of number of problems within the kingdom. Zachariah doesn't really know what he is, though. He doesn't quite understand the full extent of his powers, and so he doesn't really trust anyone when it comes to being in the castle and showcasing his powers, so he has to try his best to make people think he's a shifter. And if that doesn't make things absolutely awful as it is, he also is there with his ex-boyfriend Petra, Zachariah was involved with for a long time, and unfortunately Zachariah mentions that he kind of stepped out on the relationship, and Zachariah never really has healed from that, but unfortunately for him, they are stuck in this castle together, and he kind of has to come to terms with some of the things that he has avoided for a long time. But on the bright side, he is becoming the favorite very quickly of the prince elf that is within Alderson named Hadrian, and he is such a sweetheart. He honestly is one of my most favorite characters ever, and Hadrian actually helps Zachariah throughout the story to focus on his powers and is trying to figure out what is going on within this world and why there is the Morthy attacking, if that is exactly what is really happening within this world. This is my first male-male romance in a fantasy that I have been exposed to, and I have to say, I was so here for it. I was so happy, and I just felt all the feels, and honestly, it was probably one of the most interesting relationships that built. Although the book itself is kind of on the shorter side, I felt that the romance was actually pretty slow burning considering how small the book itself is, and I really appreciated that from Ben, because I think that a lot of times, especially in these shorter books from Off Tomes, the relationships are really fast-paced and they move very quickly, whereas with this one I feel like there finally is a different kind of way the romance is written, where it's a little bit more slow burning. I have to say, I think the thing that I was the most impressed with this novel is the fact that Ben actually has a really elegant writing style. I was not expecting this to be super elegantly written, and boy was I mistaken. I should never have doubted Ben, who has run this entire publishing company pretty much on his own. It was so elegantly written. It was very flowery and flowy and fit this fantasy very well, because I just felt like I was so involved in the story. I was involved within the world. I was really just understanding everything so well, but everything just kind of was beautiful in the same sense. Despite how dark everything was, it was still very beautiful because of the way that the language of the story was written in. The world building was not that intense because we really were only focused in one town, which was called Alderson. That's like the main hub where the castle is and the kingdom is. So we were sitting there, and then we kind of went off into the forest a couple times. So there wasn't much room to really build the world, but you kind of got an understanding of the overall idea of the world, where there's 3 separate areas that house the different kinds of elves. There's the Nerean, which is kind of the one that Zachariah is supposedly a part of. There's the Morthi, which are supposed to be kind of attacking the Nerean. They're kind of like the idea, like the bad guys in a way. And then there's the Elorian or Eloian. I can't really remember how it was written, but they're kind of like the really mystical high elves. As far as the magic system, there wasn't really a whole lot other than the shifters, but then as we look at Zachariah, you see him as a very, very different kind of magical wielding elf, and so a lot of the story is focused on him trying to understand his abilities and understand who he is in the grand scheme of things amidst all of these shifters, because otherwise that is the only magic that's involved in the story, is the fact that everyone else is able to shift into different animals. You've got all kinds of different birds and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, like there's just, everyone is a different kind of animal, and it's really, really interesting to see, because especially one particular character, Alira, she is like a white tiger, and there was a really funny scene in the beginning of the story when they all start shifting that she kind of like intimidates one of the guards that is helping organize all of these shifters, and it was just really funny to me because, you know, even while they're in this shifted form, they have their personalities. So it's more or less a shift of the body and not so much the mind, which I kind of was really interested in, because I would think that if you kind of shift into an animal, you kind of have the same animal instincts, but it's more a shift of the body than the mind itself. Overall, I ended up giving Cloaked in Shadow a 5 out of 5 stars because I think that there was so many good things with it, and if there were any bad things, I didn't really notice because I was so enwrapped with the story. It was not exactly fast-paced, but when it got to the fast-paced parts, it was fast-paced, and I really liked it. I thought the ending was really interesting because it ended up putting us in a position that made everything a little bit more dire, and things really, really started to change that made everything just out the window, and I was really, really left hanging at the edge of my seat by the end of it. The writing was really, really beautiful. I loved Ben's writing, and I hope that in the future his writing continues to grow, because I just think for this novel it was absolutely wonderful for his debut, and I can't wait to see where he goes from here. But anyway, thanks guys so much for joining me in this very short review. There's not really a lot to talk about because I just loved it so much so that I would just keep gushing about the characters, and I don't really have much else to say. So anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video though, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit the button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!